Swedish defense firm Saab wants Canada to buy and build its fighter jets. The firm is pitching a partnership with Bombardier and promising to create up to 10,000 jobs along with it.
The company that makes the Gripen has told CTV News that 10,000 manufacturing and research jobs could land in Canada if Ottawa adds the Swedish fighter jet to its military fleet.
In Canada, to do their own upgrades, to build parts of it, to do final assembly and tests, we, as Saab, we are prepared to do that technology transfer to Canada and support that build-up.
Something quiet but significant is unfolding inside NATO, and it has nothing to do with speeches, summits, or formal announcements. The signal is being sent through aircraft choices, operating concepts, and a growing unease about assumptions that once felt unshakable. At the center of that unease is Sweden's JAS F-35 Gripen, an aircraft never meant to dominate headlines, now forcing a conversation few expected to happen. This is not a story about rejecting alliances or replacing advanced technology. It is about resilience, control, and whether modern air power can survive when conditions turn hostile faster than anyone planned. Canada's fighter decision was always presented as a routine transition, a clean replacement of aging CF-18S with a new generation of aircraft ready to serve for decades. On paper, the logic seems straightforward and almost mechanical. Old airframes retire, new ones arrive, operational gaps close, and the mission continues. Beneath that surface, however, the discussion was never limited to airframes or performance charts. It revolved around how Canada actually fights, where it operates, and what happens when the environment refuses to cooperate. Canada patrols the second largest airspace on Earth, stretches deep into the Arctic, relies on distant northern bases, and operates across enormous distances where infrastructure is thin and weather is unforgiving. Russian bomber activity along northern approaches has increased. Arctic routes have become strategically relevant again, and response times matter more than perfection. In that context, the central question stops being about stealth alone and starts becoming about survivability. The Gripen enters this conversation from a place few modern fighters share. It was designed with the expectation that the opening moments of a conflict would be chaotic, destructive, and deeply hostile to centralized planning. Sweden never assumed protected rear areas or untouched runways. Its planners assumed that air bases would be targeted immediately, command networks would be disrupted, and reinforcements might not arrive quickly. That assumption shaped every design choice. The aircraft can operate from short runways, damaged surfaces, and even public roads. It can be refueled and rearmed rapidly by small crews using minimal equipment. It was built to disperse, relocate, and remain operational even when traditional airbase infrastructure collapses. Where many aircraft depend on ideal conditions to deliver peak performance, the Gripen assumes those conditions disappear early. This approach reflects a Cold War mindset that never fully faded in Sweden, one grounded in decentralization and national survival. Air power, in that view, is not about dazzling capability on day one, but about staying alive long enough to keep fighting. That philosophy becomes deeply relevant when looking at the Arctic. Extreme cold degrades equipment, long distances strain logistics, satellite coverage is not always guaranteed, and redundancy is limited by geography. In those conditions, the ability to operate independently, to move quickly, and to recover fast becomes as important as raw capability. The Gripen was shaped for that world, not as a theoretical exercise, but as a practical response to geography and history. The contrast with the F-35 highlights why this debate has unsettled planners. The F-35 represents a different doctrine built around integration, centralized logistics, and a tightly connected ecosystem of software, sensors, and data links. Its strengths are undeniable: sensor fusion, deep strike capability, and coalition interoperability place it in a class of its own for certain missions. That capability, however, rests on assumptions about infrastructure, maintenance chains, and continuous digital connectivity. Secure bases, uninterrupted logistics flows, frequent software updates, and stable satellite coverage are baked into how the aircraft reaches its full potential. The Arctic offers none of those guarantees, especially in a high-end conflict where adversaries actively target networks and infrastructure. This is where the Gripen's message becomes uncomfortable rather than confrontational. It emphasizes autonomy over dependence and availability over theoretical dominance. Its systems are designed to function even when links degrade and centralized support becomes unreliable. That does not make it more advanced in a technical sense, but it makes it harder to neutralize through disruption alone. The idea that the most capable aircraft might not be the most survivable under sustained pressure forces, a re-evaluation of long-held assumptions about air superiority. Control plays an equally important role in this discussion. The F-35 does not exist in isolation within national inventories. Its software, mission systems, electronic warfare libraries, and update cycles are managed through a shared framework that prioritizes standardization across operators. That structure enables coalition warfare at an unprecedented level, but it also limits national autonomy. Mission data control, weapons integration timelines, and system modifications require external coordination. The Gripen follows a different model. Operators receive full control over mission data, nationally configurable software, independent weapons integration, and sovereign authority over upgrades. For a country like Canada, that difference carries strategic weight. It reduces dependency during crises and removes uncertainty about access, permissions, and timelines when pressure is highest. The question raised is not whether stealth remains valuable or whether alliances matter. Both remain central to modern defense. The deeper issue is whether a single centralized system can serve every operational environment equally well. When one NATO country openly explores alternatives, even as complements, it signals a shift. Smaller allies with constrained budgets pay attention. Air forces operating from austere environments take note. The conversation moves away from exclusivity and toward flexibility. That shift challenges more than procurement plans. It challenges a model of air power built around uniformity and central control. Despite speculation, this debate was never about abandoning the F-35 or rejecting cooperation with the United States. No serious Air Force ignores the advantages of stealth, sensor fusion, and coalition integration. The issue was always about balance. Modern conflicts do not guarantee secure air bases or uninterrupted access to global networks. Adversaries target runways, logistics hubs, satellites, and data links early. In that environment, concentrating capability into a small number of highly complex platforms creates a vulnerability that technology alone cannot erase. A diversified force structure reduces that risk. The Gripen's role emerges as a hedge rather than a replacement. It represents a platform designed to keep operating when networks fracture, bases are damaged, and centralized command struggles to keep pace. That capability protects higher-end assets by absorbing pressure, maintaining presence, and preventing a single strike from paralyzing an entire air force. Survivability at scale becomes the goal rather than dominance through perfection. This approach does not diminish advanced platforms. It makes them more resilient by ensuring they are not alone. Air power doctrine across NATO has begun to reflect this reality. Fixed bases are increasingly viewed as early targets rather than secure sanctuaries. Runways can be cratered, fuel supplies disrupted, and maintenance facilities disabled with relative ease. When air power is concentrated in a few pristine locations, efficiency increases but resilience declines. Distributed operations reverse that trade-off. Smaller detachments, multiple launch points, rapid relocation, and redundancy allow air forces to absorb shocks and continue operating. Aircraft designed for dispersed basing enable this shift in a practical way rather than as a theoretical concept. The Gripen fits naturally into this model. Its ability to operate from highways, remote strips, and damaged runways allows air forces to spread out and remain unpredictable. Centralized command remains important, but it no longer becomes a single point of failure. Operations continue even under pressure, even with degraded networks, even when infrastructure suffers. This approach does not replace high-end strike platforms. It preserves them by preventing early paralysis. Endurance replaces spectacle as the measure of success. From Washington's perspective, the concern is not losing a customer. It is the precedent being set. If allies demand greater control over software, more autonomy in operations, and flexibility in basing concepts, the broader structure of Western air power shifts. Standardization gives way to modularity. Centralization yields ground to resilience. That transformation carries implications far beyond any single aircraft program. The Gripen does not outperform the F-35 in raw capability, but it reframes the question being asked. Instead of asking which aircraft dominates the sky, planners begin asking which air force survives the opening phase of a modern war. Canada has not finalized its long-term balance yet, but the signal has already been sent. It was delivered without speeches or confrontation, through careful consideration of geography, threat environments, and operational reality. The Gripen's message to Canada is straightforward. Defending national airspace should not depend on external permission or perfect conditions. Its message to the F-35 is sharper. Air dominance loses meaning when it cannot be sustained. Its message to NATO cuts deeper still. Resilience now defines the future of air power. Every Air Force is watching because the challenge was never directed at the aircraft itself. It was aimed at the assumptions behind it. And once assumptions begin to crack, the structure built on them can never remain the same. Moreover, yesterday, a sharp warning emerged from Washington that immediately raised the stakes of Canada's ongoing fighter jet debate, with the United States signaling it could send American fighter aircraft into Canadian airspace if the F-35 purchase fails to proceed as planned. The statement landed amid growing scrutiny of the F-35 program, whose total projected cost has increased by roughly $8 billion over the past 3 years, turning a procurement decision into a broader test of sovereignty, cost control, and continental defense. At the center of the warning was U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra, who suggested that Canada's long-standing role within the North American Aerospace Defense Command could face structural changes if Ottawa reduces or abandons its commitment to buying 88 F-35 fighter jets from Lockheed Martin. The implication was direct and unusually blunt, because a smaller Canadian fleet would create security gaps that the United States would move to cover, including through more frequent American operations over Canadian territory.